Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into a topic that looks like just leisure, travel, but actually our sources show it can be this incredibly powerful thing for, well, real personal transformation.
Yeah, we're talking about solo travel, not just ticking off sites, but travel as a deliberate journey for self-discovery, maybe healing, definitely personal growth.
And what's really interesting today is how our sources come together. We've got a sort of theoretical side, the why and how of finding yourself through travel.
Right, like the actual steps. And then there's this incredibly personal story, someone using solo trips to navigate huge life changes, specifically dealing with, well, profound loss. It's quite moving.
So our mission really is to pull out the practical methods like a toolkit
Yeah.
and also explore the deeper meaning, of using travel consciously to figure out who you authentically are.
It boils down to a question one of our sources asks, which I think is great. If you had zero responsibilities, no expectations from anyone, who would you actually be?
Exactly. And solo travel, that's maybe the space where you can start exploring that inner world.
Okay, so starting with the philosophy behind it, there's this basic idea, maybe obvious, but we often forget it. The longest relationship you will ever have is the one with yourself.
Right. It's the constant from beginning to end.
And if that's the foundation, then being sort of good at being you is just essential for your own happiness, sure, but also for how you connect with everyone else.
But how do you even do that? I mean, the world today is so loud, constantly telling you who you should be.
Well, that's exactly where solo travel comes in. It's not just a nice to have, it can be psychologically vital. One source calls it the power of extraction.
Extraction, like pulling yourself out.
Precisely. It physically removes you from the environment, the people, the routines that kind of dictate the expectations you live under day to day.
Okay, extraction. What does that feel like, though? Is
Yeah.
it instant relief, or does it take, like, a week before you shake off those pressures? Because back home, the comparison thing is just relentless.
Oh, it definitely takes time. It's not instant magic. But changing your environment, that really speeds things up. I mean, think about it. At home, you're swimming in comparison.
Totally. Top 100, this, best that, everyone's perfect life on social media.
Exactly. And that constant measuring up, it feeds into something Caroline McHugh mentioned in a TED Talk back in 2013. She called it an addiction to approval.
An addiction to approval.
Oh, cool.
Wow. That sounds intense, but it makes a certain kind of sense. If you're always looking outside for validation, where's the energy left for figuring out what you actually want or need?
Right. It's distracting. It drains you. So this kind of travel, this self-discovery journey, it's like a detox. It's about understanding yourself, your values, strengths, weaknesses, what you like, what you don't, without constantly checking how you stack up against others.
So the aim isn't necessarily becoming a better version of the person everyone else sees.
No, not necessarily.
It's more about understanding the real you underneath all that performing.
That's it. The outcome you want is, well, heightened self-awareness. And once you have that, you can actually make choices that lead to a genuinely happier, more meaningful life for yourself.
And you need quiet for that. You can't hear yourself think with all the daily noise.
That's the core value of the extraction, you know? Traveling alone lets that critical voice, the comparing voice inside your head, finally quiet down. It creates the space you need for the self-discovery work to actually happen.
Yeah, that idea of silence and space,
Yeah.
it's key. Because if you're always reacting, always busy, always meeting someone else's needs, how can you possibly know what you truly intend or want?
And being solo gives you this unique vantage point. It's almost like a lab setting. You get to watch yourself operate when nobody you know is watching.
Okay. Like catching yourself in the act.
Kinda.
Yeah.
You see the real reasons behind your choices. Are you picking this cafe because you genuinely like it or because it'll look good online? Are you rushing through this museum because you're actually busy or just because you feel awkward standing still by yourself?
Interesting. So you can spot your default settings and then maybe consciously adjust them to build the life you actually want when you get back home.
Exactly. But how do you structure this? It's not just about wandering aimlessly, hoping for an epiphany. Our sources lay out a pretty practical toolkit. 5 steps, actually, to focus the journey.
Okay, let's break those down. Step 1.
Step 1 is fundamental. Safety first. You've got to pick somewhere you feel safe, both physically and emotionally.
Right, because if you're constantly worried or looking over your shoulder,
Your energy's gone. You can't do any internal work if you're stressed about your surroundings, so establish that safety net first.
makes sense. Okay, step 2.
Seek solitude. Intentionally go places that encourage quiet thinking. The source mentions obvious ones like parks, libraries, art galleries, places where you can just be and observe.
And it says, To notice where your mind wanders in those quiet moments.
Yes. That's fascinating, isn't it? When your mind isn't being bombarded, where does it naturally go? That can tell you a lot about maybe hidden interests or even dreams you had when you were younger, before life got complicated.
Huh. You might find yourself thinking about, I don't know, ancient history, something totally unrelated to your job.
Exactly. It could reconnect you to a part of yourself you've lost touch with. Okay, step 3. Leave unscheduled time.
Ah, this is the hard one for planners like me. Just empty blocks of time. Doesn't your brain just fill that with the same old worries you were trying to escape?
That's a really fair point. And yeah, the first few days might feel a bit uncomfortable, even anxious, but the source argues that a super packed itinerary just swaps one set of constraints for another.
Okay, so replacing work deadlines with tourist deadlines.
Sort of, yeah. The idea is to allow for spontaneity. You need that freedom to say yes to a random invitation or to just sit on a bench for 3 hours if that feels right, to let the place guide you a bit.
Okay, I can see that. Which leads nicely into step 4. Look for new inspiration. And the advice here is specific other birds. Explore things that are not normally your thing.
Yeah, it's about deliberately mixing things up. Cross-pollination for the brain. If you're, say, a coder, go see some experimental theater. If you're a musician, spend an afternoon at a science museum.
You're not trying to switch careers.
No, no. You're just trying to break your usual mental habits, feed your brain totally different stuff. It forces new connections, new ways of thinking, and that can spark insights about yourself, too.
Cool. Okay, and the last one, step 5. This seems crucial.
Absolutely crucial. Spend time reflecting. This isn't optional. You have to process what's happening, whether that's journaling, sketching, making voice notes on your phone, whatever works for you.
You need to capture those thoughts, the little discoveries about your strengths or interests.
Yes, because if you don't consciously document them somehow, that newfound awareness can just evaporate the minute you step back into your normal life.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got this kind of theoretical toolkit for using travel to consciously find yourself. Now let's shift to the really powerful emotional side of it, travel as a way to heal, maybe even achieve a kind of rebirth.
Right, we're moving into this very personal story now. It connects that need for inner space we just talked about with the absolute necessity of space when you're dealing with deep grief.
Yeah, this account is from a woman who lost her husband, Terry. They'd been together nearly 20 years. And the shock wasn't just the grief itself, which was immense, obviously, but also this sudden feeling that her own identity had just collapsed.
Because she'd been part of a couple for so long.
Exactly. And compounding that, she lost her mother relatively young at 57, and then Terry was only 53. So there was this terrible weight of loss, this stark awareness of how fragile life is.
Wow. She talks about reaching this point where her everyday life felt completely foreign, like the anchor was gone.
Mm-hmm. And in those first raw weeks, travel was like an emergency coping tool. An escape, really.
She mentions going skiing in Canada. Someone invited her.
Yeah. She hadn't skied in years, but she said just the sheer physical focus needed to stay upright. You know, it gave her brain a break. It forced her out of the overwhelming grief for moments at a time into just the physical sensation.
Real necessary distraction, maybe?
A totally necessary tactical avoidance just to function. But the real shift, the big turning point, happened later. She was on a longer solo trip deep in Borneo looking for orangutans.
Why?
And she gets this news. The corporate job she'd taken leave from, it was being made redundant.
Oh my gosh, while she's literally in the jungle.
Literally on a small boat on the Kinabatangan River. And she said, instead of freaking out about money or her career, she just had this moment of clarity. That job belonged to the old life, the one that didn't exist anymore.
So she accepted the redundancy, just like that.
Right there on the boat. And that's where she came up with this incredibly powerful mantra for herself. When everything changes, change everything.
Whoa. That takes courage. Recognizing you can't just patch up the old life. You have to actually build something new.
Exactly. And part of that was rethinking grief itself. The narrative makes this really important point. She realized you don't get over a loss like that. It's not possible.
Right.
Instead, the work is learning to live with it, learning to grow around the grief like a tree growing around an obstacle. You become a different person because of it. The pain is still there, but your life expands around it.
That's a powerful image, growing around it.
Isn't it? And to help forge that new path, she created a roadmap. She called it her life list, specifically not a bucket list.
Okay, life list, not bucket list. Why the difference? What's the psychology there?
Well, a bucket list often feels like it's about external achievements, right?
Hmm.
Things to do before you die. See this, climb that.
Ticking boxes.
Her life list was different. It was about intentionally bringing life back into focus, creating new reasons, new possibilities for herself. It was a guide for rebirth, really, shifting from external doing to internal being and revitalization.
That makes so much sense. And the end of her story is quite beautiful, this idea of a double discovery.
Yes. She realized solo travel had helped her find herself twice. Once when she was young, establishing her independence on her first solo trips.
And then again, decades later.
And then again, using the same tool travel to navigate devastation, process grief, and ultimately rediscover her strength and confidence in her ability to stand completely on her own.
Mm.
So putting these two sources together, you really see the dual power of solo travel, don't you? On one side, it offers that unique silence, that extraction you need to shed the weight of expectations and comparisons. That's the sort of philosophical framework.
Right, the theory. And then on the other side, it provides the distance and the perspective, maybe even builds the resilience. You need to actually create a new way forward when life throws you a massive curveball.
Yeah.
That's the powerful emotional reality.
And importantly, this isn't just for huge tragedies like losing a partner. This process, this need for space and self-reflection, it applies to any major life shift, really.
Like the end of a relationship. Or maybe when the kids leave home empty nest.
Exactly. Or even just that feeling some people get, waking up one day feeling kind of lost, disconnected. It's about taking the time to figure out who you are now. Because let's face it, you're not the same person you were 5 or 10 years ago.
That chance to step outside your everyday self seems like the biggest gift here. The source material even suggests it's an opportunity not just to find who you are, but to actively practice who you want to become.
Ooh, I like that. Practice who you want to be. You can sort of test drive a new way of being, maybe being more assertive or more reflective or more adventurous. And the stakes feel lower because you're away from everyone who has preconceived notions about you.
Precisely. So for you listening, imagine you could take off on a solo trip next week, just for a week.
Yeah.
What would you practice? What quality or new behavior would you consciously try out? Would you practice being bolder, quieter, more spontaneous?
What authentic part of yourself would you give yourself permission to step into just for that week, knowing no one from your real life is watching?
That's the challenge and the possibility that solo travel opens up.